This episode is brought to you by The Guarantors. Chasing down residents who don't pay their rent is taxing enough. Did you know you could offset the risk of renter default? Meet The Guarantors. They'll requalify your applicants and insure their rent. If the resident doesn't pay, you still get paid. Visit theguarantors.com/multifamily today. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Collective. Let's talk about leapfrogging. Do you remember when you were a kid and you were out on the playgrounds and you played leapfrog? So you got in a big line and the person at the back would jump over the person in front of them and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. And so there's a big chain of people that are playing leapfrog over one another. And how that created this sense of progress, if you will. There is a concept today, and I've read about this. We've talked about this recently. We've talked about it many times here on the podcast, but this concept of leapfrogging on the African continent, for example. You have rural areas in Africa, and this is not just Africa. This is all kinds of countries that are not developed countries. Certainly not developed as we think about it here in the United States, but underdeveloped companies or countries rather, and countries that are just now becoming developed. There's this concept, there's this idea, and I use the example out of articles that I've read about infrastructure. So for example, streets and curb lines and sewer systems and everything that's related to creating what you know today as sort of modern day infrastructure, right? That sets the stage for buildings and otherwise. All of that is very expensive, very time consuming to put in. So you have these areas in Africa that are not very accessible because there are no roadways to get there. The roadways that are there are very hard to get through and get around, or get over rather, to get to a place. So you can imagine like delivering medicines and other things that would be useful and helpful to a population. You can't do it very effectively, efficiently. So leapfrogging in that context would be exercising technology today, like drones, that you can fly in. You don't need a street. You don't need a road. You can land a drone there. You can drop off supplies. 3D or digital printing. You can actually take parts and pieces, or you could take material out there that you could put into a 3D printer and actually print out things that you might need that would be helpful to community. Delivery mechanisms are there as such that you don't need streets and very expensive infrastructure. So you leapfrog the entire process, normal process, what you know to be the normal process. And I think that artificial intelligence in our organizations today are allowing us to leapfrog things that have been put in place in the multifamily space over the last, say, 5 to 8 years. There was this tsunami that made landfall in multifamily several years ago, 5, 6 years ago now, where you had all this tech there's this little wave building, and then it crashed onto the shores of multifamily. And now you've had all of this stuff making its way through multifamily, whether it be automated leasing agents, do-it-yourself showing, modern day CRM systems that are governed around the person, not the property, all these different fraud technologies, or not technologies to exercise fraud, but rather to combat fraud. You have all this stuff that's flowing through and making landfall now. And some people might feel like they're a little bit left behind because they were not riding the wave, certainly when it started to crash onto the shores of multifamily. But now you are at a point where with large language models and artificial intelligence, machine, all these things, you can actually create, it's possible today that you can create the very systems that you would have to go out and buy from a business partner. And this is not a dig on business partners, but if you didn't want to use a business partner, if you didn't want to shell out the expense for putting a business partner in place to solve a particular issue that you have, you can build things on your own now. You can code without coding. You can create sophisticated software systems and have them in full use on your property or in your company in short order. You can do that with a partner. You can hire a partner to come in and do all of that stuff. If you don't know how to prompt, if you're not a prompt engineer, you can certainly hire somebody to build the software for you through prompting, through engineering, not code writing. So you can get those softwares built, put in place much more rapidly than you could in the past. So you can leapfrog entire generations of software systems or other kinds of systems that are put in place to govern multifamily today. And you can do that for a fraction of what you're spending today, a real fraction of what you're spending today. And my imagination tells me that, look, there are trade-offs that you will make in the early innings. Maybe it is not as sophisticated as your current PMS system. Maybe it is not as sophisticated as your current CRM system. Maybe it's not as sophisticated as XYZ system, but maybe it's good enough. It's good enough today, and it's going to iterate. We all know that ChatGPT and LLMs get smarter and smarter the more data that goes in. They're going to get smarter and smarter and smarter. Therefore, whatever you build today is going to get better and better and better. It's going to iterate. You're going to ship it to market. Your market's going to tell you, your employees, your business partners, they're going to tell you what's wrong with it and what features that you need and what benefit that would give you. And it'll just learn. It'll iterate. Version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will come out of the LLM itself, learning. It'll learn from people actually trying to game the system. If people try to do end arounds to figure out something, the system will go, oh yeah, you know what? Instead of having a sidewalk run across this way, maybe we shift the sidewalk 45 degrees, maybe go this way so that nobody does the end around anymore. They just walk across the path that seems like the path of least resistance to get to the outcome that you're desiring to get to. So it's fascinating. It's very fascinating to be alive today. And it's very fascinating to be in a position where you can play with these systems and you can create systems that are going to govern the next generation of property management. And that's happening right now today. It's being built today. It's fascinating. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.